the biggest thing that I talk about with short-term rentals is that we're not looking for the average. Okay, you're not looking for the cookie cutter property that you can just throw up on Airbnb, grandma's closet, Kenny's duplex that he house hacked, 8 years ago. That will not work today. We have to be looking for properties or turning properties into something unique. I call it a moat, the thing that separates us from everybody else. And so when you're doing this research, I'd strongly encourage you to not look at averages, but look at individual properties, or like in real estate, comparables is the term we like to use. And find and look at those and what makes them special, and is my property going to have those special things?
Welcome back to the Massive Passive Cashflow Podcast. I'm Gary Wilson, your host. I'm so glad to have you back listening to the show or watching if that's the case. We got an excellent guest today, Kenny Bedwell, and he used to live in Buffalo, and then he decided to warm up down in good old North Carolina. We used to call that North Kakalaki. I'm sure you're going to hear that when you're down there more. So, Kenny, welcome aboard, man. I'm so glad to have you on the show. I love this subject. I mean, my background started off with rentals, and we did house hacking back before there was even a term of house hacking. And in any case, in Virginia Beach, Virginia, too. Now that's a huge, Airbnb market. But if you don't mind, say hello to everyone and give us a little bit of a intro. Like what got you into this? What were you doing? What was a pivot?
Yeah.
That got into this? Because I don't think anybody's born saying I'm going to be a real estate investor. So
yeah. Well, first off, Gary, thank you for having me on the show. So I'm Kenny Bedwell. I'm a real estate investor like everyone else. I invest in short-term rentals, long-term rentals. I even have a hotel and commercial property. Look, I didn't start out in real estate. I actually graduated from BYU in Utah and then moved to Buffalo, New York about 8 years ago, where I got a job with Citibank. So I was in the corporate grind 9 to 5. And I was interested in real estate to build, some passive income on the side and potentially, leave my corporate job like 20 years in the future. And I was actually going to these like meetups, the local REI meetups in Buffalo. And Buffalo is kind of known for being really old or antiquated. It's probably a better term to put it. No offense to Buffalo. We really liked our time in Buffalo. Except when it just cold and dreary all the time. But anyway. So we're going to these meetings and these REI meetings, and everyone there is talking about apartment units and scaling and, about quantity. And there was one younger guy there, and he had this like special energy about him. And he was talking about short-term rentals, and that really piqued my interest. And so I started doing that back in 2017, and that blew up for me in the Buffalo area. And then I decided, where else could I invest I didn't know about? And so that's kind of what got me on this entrepreneur journey. I started my company, STR Insights. I started buying properties really all around the country. Right now, I have 6 short-term rentals in New York, North Carolina, Kentucky, Texas, Arizona. Am I missing any? No, I have 2 in New York. So anyway, and then long-term rentals in New York, and then the hotel in New Orleans. So it's really expanded over the last 8 years, and I left my job about 4 years ago from Citibank. So that's a little bit about myself.
Awesome. Well, I'll tell you what, I've been to Buffalo quite a bit. I've actually taught classes up there, and I used to cross the border there. Okay. When I used to live in Pittsburgh, and I was commuting up to London, Ontario, and went through quite a bit. And I've seen a lot of transformation. I mean, probably in the last, I'd say 8, maybe 7 to 10 years, roughly that time frame, Buffalo has really come a long ways from where the old days, like you said, it was just, even locals would say they're just miserable, but the prices have gone up, like there's new developments, industry. And of course, you got Niagara Falls right there, so pretty neat stuff. But when it comes to your investing, did you start to branch out from there, or kind of tell us about geography? Because obviously, you're not too far from the Finger Lakes. You've got Rochester, Syracuse, major universities, RITs in Rochester, and of course, Syracuse is a major university too. You're between 2 lakes. It's just a great area. I mean, you could even buy in Canada too, for that matter. But tell us about like how you got started. Like, what was the first property, and then as far as branching out geographically, most of us eventually do that. We want to realize, okay, there's more ponds to fish. But take us down that road. And if you can give an example, like sometimes the first one is really good, and then we do the second one, the third one, then we start to get too confident, and we're like, man, I probably shouldn't have bought that one. Whereas we're more remodeling than I thought. We get overconfident, and then we got to come back to reality. But
Yeah.
people love hearing those kind of stories because it makes it more real, and we help them avoid some of the things that we did, and learn or copy the things that we did that work well.
Yeah. Honestly, Gary, with the transformation of the short-term rental space, I always say it's maturing, right? So it's evolving, it's growing, it's more competitive now. And I think people have heard that, maybe Airbnb bust or things like that. And so we've had to adapt. And that's kind of my evolution really started. So you mentioned house hacking, at the very beginning. That's actually how I got started. I bought a duplex and I was going to rent out one side long-term and live in the other side. And my wife and I were just like, let's try this Airbnb thing and see what happens, And it was just kind of a shot in the dark. And we're like, if it doesn't work, we'll just long-term rent the property,
Mm-hmm.
Now, I will say that's really challenging to make work today. You can house hack a long-term rental today, but you can't say, oh, if it doesn't short-term rent, I'm going to long-term rent it. It's never going to be in the right location. But we did that back then, and you could get away with that. And it worked. We made 3 times the rent. So at the time, that unit, it could probably, long-term rent maybe $600-$700 a month. And this is Buffalo, so prices are lower. We were making about $3,000 a month on Airbnb. Okay, and
Nice.
this is 2017. Now I was like, holy crap, I need to go do this again. And so I went and actually bought a duplex in downtown Buffalo, and we renovated it. We turned it and we geared it more towards being a short-term rental. So, and we bought this property for $250,000. Okay. So $250,000. And then in that first year, I think we grossed like $80,000, and which was pretty good. So I think our net walk away from that was about 30 to 35,000. And I'm like, wow, like there's something here. What can I do to elevate this even more? And so we started doing things that are actually pretty common today. So a lot of people are putting murals in. So we actually put a big giant, we had this special artist come in, and this is in 2018 in Buffalo, put in this big Buffalo mural on one of the walls and, make it like social media worthy, like Instagram shot or whatever people could take, branding essentially, and we just wanted to build this really cool, property that kept its historic charm in the downtown Buffalo area. And once we did these little things to make it like a pure short-term rental focused only, instead of having that like exit plan, like, oh, well, if this doesn't work out, we'll just long-term rent it. It's like, no, we're going to go all in on the short-term rental side. Our rent shot up from, I think it was like 70, 80 in the first year. It went up to 120 in the next year. So a $250,000 home that I'm grossing $120,000 on. So when you take the net out of that, I mean, you're talking like $50,000, $60,000 a year on a $250,000 property. And then then COVID hit. It was a little scary there. We had to kind of midterm rent it out for a few months just to pay the bills, and that was fine. It worked out. But then the boom really happened for Airbnb. And that's when I just started trying to acquire and manage other people's properties. And I was really growing a portfolio. I had about 10, between what I owned and other people's properties I was managing, I had 10 properties in the portfolio. But I'm a big believer in diversification. And that might come from that corporate background or whatever in financing. But I really felt that I needed to expand and explore, because New York is New York. And in hindsight, and now we know, but I kind of predicted in the back then is, what if they shut me down? I'd be in trouble. I would be in big trouble. And so I actually, I'm very big into data. So what I did is I compiled some data from Airbnb, VRBO, and some other market and some other sources, looked at housing prices. And I said, in the areas that I could, states, like I like New York and Pennsylvania, Ohio, North Carolina, where should I invest? What's doing well that I just don't know about? Because we don't know everything. And in fact, there's over 12,000 vacation markets across the United States. That's a lot. Yeah. So I only know what I know, right? So where can I invest? What can I invest in? And I actually found some markets. I found the Finger Lakes. That's one of the properties I bought. And I found North Carolina, Asheville area, and
Yeah.
some other places. So the first property, expansion. This is a big leap of faith for me. Is I bought a $350,000 7-bedroom, 7-bath former bed and breakfast in Watkins Glen, New York, which is in the Finger Lakes.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
so I've had that one for a while. That property, its first year, did about 90,000. Then I made some adjustments, added a hot tub, did some other things. I still have that property today. I actually sold off my entire Buffalo portfolio and I've scaled into other areas. But this property today, here are the numbers. I bought it for 350, and this was in 2022. Bought it for
Hmm.
350. I this year and last year I'm going to do about the same. Last year I did $140,000 in gross
Wow.
income on that property. I netted 77K on that property.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's an amazing return, you know?
So,
So,
and I didn't know about that market until I had done that research and that data dive, and it was still that leap of faith to expand. But if you know how to do your due diligence, if you know how to run your numbers and what to look for, I mean, you can pull this off in multiple markets across the country. And
yeah.
so that's kind of, so I do short-term rentals. And like I said, I have a hotel as well, and I'm getting into that space. But as we evolve and scale, I think diversification is key, but also, sharpening those, running the number skills and looking at data and doing that research. So,
Yeah. Well, I tell you let's talk about that there, research, the numbers, the data and all that. Um, what, you know, using the data to identify the profitable short-term rental markets, are there any particular resources that you can point to that are maybe publicly available? And enough because if we can save people some money by using public resources, that'd be great. Paid services, of course, that's we're not really
yeah.
supposed to promote, but sometimes we do, and it's natural, and that's okay. So yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, well, when we're thinking about underwriting a short-term rental deal, there are three key pieces that people mess up. So,
Okay.
number one, and this is the easiest one, it's debt service coverage rate. So, like, what's your monthly mortgage going to be? So, talking to a lender, understanding where interest rates are, and knowing like what your monthly mortgage is going to be. Okay, that's pretty straightforward. It's very black and white. That's free. The second one, and there's some assumptions you have to make, but they're just your monthly operating costs. And with short-term rentals, there's things like utilities, insurance, which is different for short-term rentals than other types of properties. You also have, the property taxes, and those could change based on the type, if it's a second home in some states versus just, a regular primary residence. And so it's just kind of knowing a few of those things, also regulations and making sure, the permitting and what those things are. It's just doing that research, that due diligence, speaking to, if you're working with a realtor, talking to a realtor who knows the area, knows like some of these, hey, gotchas. And then finally, but the biggest one, this is one you're probably asking about, is revenue. How much do these properties generate? So
Yeah.
there are several data sources out there. Some are paid, like you mentioned, and some are free.
Hmm.
Now I'll give you two free ones and two paid ones. Now you guys are in luck. I created a company based off my data, and we have a free software that it's free. So
Oh, cool.
I'm gonna self promote a little bit, but I'm gonna say it's free. And you plug in an address, and it will tell you what the revenue of that property can generate. It's 100% free, no gotchas or anything. You don't even need an email. I don't even need your email to give you
Nice.
that information. So
Yeah.
there's no gatekeeping or anything like that with this software. So my company is STR Insights. You can go to strinsights.com.
Okay.
But here are some of my competitors because I don't really care. Data Rabu is also free. Data, it's just data, then Rabu, RABBU.com. I
Okay.
know those guys are really good. And it's the same kind of setup. You plug in an address, it spits out revenue estimates and tells you what those properties can gross. That's keyword gross. And
Okay.
then there's paid services. There's kind of the marquee in our industry, AirDNA. It's a
Yeah.
subscription. And then there's another one called Price Labs. It's a pay per search. So
Okay.
there's multiple ways to get this data, whether it's paid or free, but it's out there, and it's just understanding what to look for when you do a search.
Yeah.
the biggest thing that I talk about with short-term rentals is that we're not looking for the average. Okay. You're not looking for the cookie cutter property that you can just throw up on Airbnb, grandma's closet, Kenny's duplex that he house hacked, 8 years ago. That will not work today. We have to be looking for properties or turning properties into something unique. I call it a moat, the thing that separates us from everybody else. And so when you're doing this research, I'd strongly encourage you to not look at averages, but look at individual properties, or like in real estate, comparables is the term we like to use, and find and look at those and what makes them special. And is my property going to have those special things?
Hey there, did you know you can join a free real estate mastermind session every Monday night? It's called Monday Night Live, and it kicks off at 7 p.m. Eastern. I'm Gary Wilson, and every week I host this live class, joined by investor agents from across the country and around the world. And here's the best part: no selling, no recruiting, just pure, actionable real estate education. Every Monday, we cover everything from the basics to advanced strategies. We even bring in expert guests once or twice a month. Topics like how to buy property using crypto, how AI is reshaping the real estate landscape, what the metaverse and blockchain mean for real estate deals today. Whether you're a new investor or a seasoned pro, you'll walk away with real value, and you'll have the chance to ask questions live, connect with others, and expand your network. Sound good? Then head over to realestatewithgarywilson.com. Click the Resources tab, select Monday Night Live, and you'll find recent replays plus a full schedule. You can register for any upcoming session, even weeks in advance. And if you're watching this on social media, just check the video description for the direct registration link. I'll see you Monday night. Bring your questions, your notepad, and your drive to grow. I look forward to connecting with you.
Yeah. Hey, now, you mentioned, Buffalo, Finger Lakes, and Asheville, North Carolina. One of the things I always found interesting about the Airbnb is my initial impression was, when I first discovered it back, it was like 10 years ago, well, it's going to be in the resort areas, but it's not just in the resort areas. I mean, here in Pittsburgh, Airbnbs everywhere. And if you think about it, a place like Pittsburgh historically had the old reputation where this is where you go to catch a cold. It's just industrial, kind of like probably like Buffalo, Yeah. But it went through a major renaissance, actually a couple of them. And now there's, great higher education. I mean, Carnegie Mellon's here, for crying out loud. You got Pitt. Pitt's a major university. You got major medical. It's a sub-financial center for New York City, and high tech center too. And it's just always rated a great place to raise a family, and I can attest to that. But what's really cool is you've got three professional sports teams: hockey, baseball, and football. You've got a major college team, college team, with Pitt. You've got multiple events and festivals around the year. You've got weddings, all kinds of stuff that you could use. So Airbnb is huge, and
IKEA. Don't forget IKEA. We have to go to Pittsburgh all the time for IKEA.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, that's where you learn how to put together furniture.
Yeah, there you go.
I've done a number of those in my life, but so when you're looking, let's just take North Carolina, because that's where you are now. You've got the Research Triangle, Raleigh, Durham, Greensboro, you've got Winston-Salem. You've got Charlotte, of course, the biggest city there. Wilmington. There's so many. I could name bunches of towns there, but are there certain things you look for in addition to the numbers, like industry-wise? Like, what are the industries that are there? Are they diverse? Are they more like Fayetteville is all military? So if we ever decide to move the military base out of there, Fayetteville is going to be in bad shape. But anything like that you look for before you choose to buy there, for maybe because you might attract the midterm rentals, the traveling nurse, the traveling high tech guy. Anything along those lines on your criteria or your checklist when you're looking?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think at first it starts out with being clear on what you're trying to do. So in my opinion, I've been talking about short-term rentals, right? I buy short-term rentals that are actually what I would classify as vacation rentals. They're more in a destination area where people are vacationing to, for R&R, and really just getting away and enjoying, whether it's a property, but things in the area to do. Okay. But there are other places, like you mentioned, Fayetteville, with a military base or a university or a hospital, where you could short-term rent, you could midterm rent, and you have multiple options. And so you need to, when you're when you're thinking about where and what to invest in, if you're wanting to get into the short-term rental space, I think you kind of got to pick a category. Am I doing this? Do I want a vacation rental? Some people buy for what we call lifestyle assets. They want to vacate, like buy somewhere where they can vacation and then it pays for itself the rest of the year. That wouldn't be, in my opinion, I don't know how many people want to vacation to Fayetteville, military base. Dayton, Ohio for the Air Force or whatever, but that it's a different strategy, a different approach. So number one, be clear on what your goals are, I think, with the type of property you're going to be looking for, because urban centers are going to be different than, the vacation destinations. So for me, I start there. If I'm looking for vacation properties, which I typically do, style properties, I'm looking for properties within driving distance of these major cities, these about 2 to 3 hours. Okay. Everybody has, if you think about it, Pittsburgh, you can tell me, Buffalo, I can tell you, all these cities have some sort of place that the locals drive to every single year consistently. Buffalo, we were going to the Finger Lakes. We were going to Allegheny State Park. We're going to, Erie, PA, maybe down to Geneva, Ohio, even Geneva on the Lake. Like, we're going down to these places, like everybody's got, and then, locals from Pittsburgh are going there. Locals from Cleveland are going to those places too. Rochester, you kind of have this bubble of about a 2 to 3 hour radius that hits these major cities. And 9 times out of 10, those are the best in vacation markets to invest in with the best returns. Awesome. So that is like the number one strategy I do, is looking at around these areas, because, unless someone lives in, Pittsburgh or Buffalo, they're not going to know these places, and so it's kind of like, understand what's around these major cities is going to be a great place to start. And honestly, if you're like, well, I don't even know, just think about where you're at. Places within 2 to 3 hours. So driving destinations.
Awesome. Okay. Now, as far as overall geography, are you open to anywhere in the U.S. and even Canada too, or is it you really kind of focused on the East Coast, or what's the scope of your pond you're fishing in?
Yeah, so I am primarily just U.S. based. I do know some of Canada, some of Mexico, some of the Caribbean, but I mainly help investors in the United States only. So that is my bread and butter all day, every day. So
well, it's interesting is, I used to live in London, Ontario. Actually, I've actually lived in Toronto for a bit too. And a lot of Canadians invest in the States, even though they take a 10% hit when they bring their money back to Canada, but it's still worth it for them because they make so much down here in the States. And all of our clients on our team, Global Investor Agent team, says global for a reason. We've got clients all over the world, and they all come here to invest. They're not. I'm not knocking other countries, but let's face it, most people are coming here because of the stability. It's just more reliable, predictable. Some countries, people, I'm not going to name them because I don't want to get in trouble, but people who live in these countries, we know personally, will not invest in their own country because they're deeply afraid of having their investments taken from them by the government. They believe that that's a real fear there's here. We might continue to tax them to death, but at least we're going to let them keep their property.
Right. The fundamental American government's protecting property rights. So
that's it. It just goes back. The oldest laws in the world were all based on land ownership, and some places are starting to whittle away to that. Again, Canada, you're trying to go own something up in Quebec or Ontario provinces and see what you really own. The rules are dramatically in the tenant's favor. And then it's even in the States. There's states like, well, I will name them. I know I'm going to get in trouble for saying this. California, New Jersey, New York, they are really tough on owners, man. That's why people there don't invest there. They get out and they move to Florida. Georgia, South Carolina, Alabama is hot right now. Holy cow. My gosh. Now I will get in trouble. Everybody in Alabama is going to say, stop telling people about Alabama, but it's one of the fastest growing areas for investing. It just is. You got Huntsville, Birmingham, Gulf Shores, major universities, probably some of the best college football there ever was. At least, for the time being, we'll see. but major industries are moving there. It's just amazing. It's like Tennessee was 20, maybe a generation ago. But in any case, let's get back to the property. So when you're managing your Airbnbs, are you focused strictly on the short term, like typically vacation rentals, because that's what you're buying? But do you also entertain the midterm rentals? We used to call it corporate housing. They'll pay usually twice or more prevailing rates, but they're staying 3, 6, 9 months, and they're coming there. They're not bringing their dogs and kids. They're flying home on the weekend, and so they're not doing the wear and tear. And sometimes the employer will pay the rent. But is that crept into your model, or other people that do that? That you teach and so forth, or?
Sure. Yeah, I a few years ago, I had two, we call it, midterm rentals. We'd rent out on to nurses. We were near Roswell Park, which is one of the top cancer institutes in the country. And so, we'd have traveling nurses, we'd have other, we were also downtown. And so we'd get some football players, we'd get, for, camps or whatever, actors and actresses for the Shays Performance Center. They were there for a few weeks, just like longer term stays, but in that midterm format. And yes, we would do that, but it's a different animal. I am very much, one thing I've learned is the more specific you can get, the more you can niche down, essentially, the better results you're going to have. It's scary to do that. It's very scary. Now, if you look at my investment portfolio, you'd be like, you're in like everything. And I'm like, yeah, sure. But like it's managed differently. But what I really corely focus on and what I teach and share and dive into and what I'm like the expert in, 100% short-term rentals. Midterm rentals, I've done it. I've seen it. But I'm like, I am not the go-to on that. So
that's okay.
But
what are into some of your like strategies, or some people call it the secret sauce? Can you share a couple of creative strategies that you use to turn average properties into top performing short-term rentals?
Yeah, it's first off, I want to say it's gotten really competitive with Airbnbs. I mean, there's a lot of people hear the term. I call it the boogeyman of our space, the boogeyman term, which is saturation. Market saturation. No, there's too many short-term rental or too many Airbnbs. I mean, that's true if you are quote unquote the average. Meaning if you're doing what everybody else is doing, the average is creeping down. I mean, we're even seeing that in our economy too, in the United States, where the wealthier, the top, 10%, 1% are making more money, and the average is making less money and getting hit harder. And so there's the wealth divide within our country and a wealth divide within short-term rentals, meaning the top performing properties in the top 10% are making more year over year, and everybody else is making less. And because there's so many more people making less, you hear that more often in the space, that they're louder, right? So you have to be very strategic on what you buy. And it all comes down to your cash on hand that you're willing to invest. I see too many people who want to get into this space over leverage themselves with the purchase price, meaning they go for the most expensive property they can buy based on what their lender will give them money for, and they leave nothing left over for furnishings, amenities, any sort of updates that you have to do to the property. And in this day and age, you have to invest in your property. So the properties that we buy today, we're putting in, this doesn't include down payment, so buckle up, strap in when I tell you these numbers. We're putting in $300,000 to $400,000 into these properties, these vacation rentals. Okay, that's furnishings, amenities, design, updates, renovations, things like that in these properties. We are forcing some appreciation. That's huge, right? We don't want to just, buy at the top of the market, throw in $400,000 and then call it a day. But these properties are making $100,000, $200,000 net. That is net. That's not gross. That means gross. They're grossing $300,000 to $400,000. So we're putting all of this money in, expecting a large return, and it's a bit of a gamble. But that's where the space has evolved to. Now, it doesn't mean you have to have $400,000 to dump into a property, but I'm buying 9-bedroom, 10-bedroom houses today. Back then, a few years ago, I was buying 2 bedrooms, 1 bedrooms. We all have to start from somewhere. But my point being is, what am I going to have to put into the property, understanding those costs first, and then working backwards based on your cash on hand. And that will tell you what you can actually afford, not just what you get pre-approved for. That's the number one place to start.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what? It's interesting. You mentioned 9 and 10 bedrooms, and I can see the logic there because it's obviously it's more scalable when you look at, cost basis versus income. But in those kind of properties, are you offering, like, do you have somebody come in the morning to cook, breakfast for everybody? I mean, that's a lot of people you can potentially serve, but things like that. And then, so talk about that a little bit, the services you provide, but also themes. I've seen people actually, there's one here in Pittsburgh. It was probably 9 or 10 bedroom, and it was a famous house, by the way. But the new owners took it and made it a really strong Pittsburgh history theme, complete with sports, because sports is probably one of the biggest things here, but also the history. I mean, if you look at the history of who's been here, the Carnegies, the Rockwells, the Mellons. I mean, the history, like Lewis and Clark expedition launched from the shores of the Three Rivers, right? So, so services, what do you provide? Is it case by case, and then any kind of theme like you tie into the area when you're remodeling your properties and putting money into them,
Yeah, for sure. So really it comes down to, so I briefly touched on it earlier, but I call it the moat, that thing that separates you from the competition or insulates you from people being able to easily replicate what you're doing. So that could be location, that could be proximity, it could be views, it could be on the water, things like that, where it's just like a limited amount of supply that can do certain things. And so the first thing I always do are look for properties that have some sort of moat about them. Okay. Mm-hmm. But going into the theme and services side, we start with the who is coming to the area and why are they coming to the area?
Yeah.
And once we understand that, so let's take an example because it's easier. So for example, we did so there is the Kentucky Bourbon Trail, which has exploded in the last 5 years. Mm-hmm. So in Kentucky, this is like the Napa Valley for bourbon drinkers. There's over 50 distilleries across this area. People are driving around. It's a drive-in destination market. You've also got Derby days, so the Kentucky Derby, college sports going on in Louisville and Lexington. PGA is big down there too. Bunch of country events and things, all this stuff. And then bourbon, these large groups traveling. So we bought a 9-bedroom, 7-bath. It was 9,600 square feet. And we're like, we want to STR or short-term rent this property. It was near one of the bigger distilleries called Buffalo Trace, about 10 minutes from it in Frankfurt. And we wanted to design it towards people traveling for distilleries. So who travels for distilleries or to distilleries? It's going to be usually older folks, right? Obviously people 21 and up, but think about it, like working club, usually maybe retired, 40s, 50s, and these people are traveling. What do they want in their property? So now we're theming it around the amenities and the design. So you start getting moodier designs, darker colors, more like there's like a poker table, and we have pool tables and a golf simulator. We did not just one hot tub, because this place can sleep 28. We did 2 hot tubs right next to each other. We've got a heated pool. We have a chipping green, a little mini custom bourbon themed mini putt-putt. I wish to show some photos. It's pretty cool. Like all these things, and we have a theater room, we have a gym and a yoga studio, and like we have an indoor sauna. It's kind of like a little mini resort in and of itself. But all of these things were specifically to target those types of groups, older groups who would enjoy these amenities. On this property, we don't have play sets. On this property, we don't have little kids' toys and games and things like that targeting families. It's targeting these larger groups for the distillery tours. Now,
people my age group.
Exactly. When you see this property, you're going to be like, I want to stay there. If I'm going to go drink, go down there, go to distilleries, I want to stay at this property. It's going to have, you have your own bathroom. Every group has their own bathroom. It's targeted towards that. Whereas a property we just launched in Fort Worth, Texas, Completely different. It's 100% geared towards families. We have a pickleball court. We have we have a big giant play set that kids can play on. We have a really cool movie theater room. We have these like kids corners that has a little indoor. It's a really cool room. We did it with the attic as this indoor, it was custom built, like tree house thing, and it's all like, it screams families, Now families actually still come and stay at our property in Frankfurt. We still have like, high chairs and things like that. But when you see it, it's specifically calling out a specific guest avatar. And that's the goal. That's the angle. That's the approach. And the services tie into that. The Frankfurt property, we get a ton of wedding requests. People come and get married at this property, which blew our minds. We weren't even thinking about that. But it's older groups, and they're coming, for a small wedding or whatever. It's on 5 acres, 2 ponds, beautiful property. And so we started working with caterers and all this other stuff, and we have these services involved. Nobody's asking about weddings at this Fort Worth property. They don't want other types of like small services or extra things, maybe a chef or some, babysitting services. We got that one time, like, hey, can someone come watch the kids while we go out and go do something? Go to the downtown Fort Worth area for the I forget what it's called, the cattle wrangling thing that they do down there. But anyway, it's different. And so as we focus on the guest avatar, who is coming and why they're coming, we build the services and the theme around that. And that's what makes those properties successful.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, I've got a lot of good buddies from my college days, and we still get together every year for the NCAA basketball tournament kickoff. And we like trying different bourbons. So if you get us some Buffalo Trace, I guarantee you we can get 9 or 10 people to come out there and do the tour. Actually, one of them already has. He's done the tour out there in the Bourbon Trail. So I think we'll do that next year. Maybe we'll do the Kentucky Derby in May, and while we're out there, do the Bourbon Tour. But that Buffalo Trace is hard to get, man. It's a crapshoot trying to find it. But boy, it's really. I guess I'm promoting something by saying this, but with all you bourbon drinkers out there, if you haven't had Buffalo Trace, you need to try it. So
and it's actually distilleries. The crazy thing is, I don't even drink. I don't drink at all. But I went to the distilleries. I talked to people there. I saw what the hubbub was toward it. It was actually really cool. It's beautiful. A lot of those distilleries, and it's a cool process learning how they make the bourbon there and what they do. I thought it was actually fun, especially obviously I'm not trying anything, but it's a very popular area. There's a lot of people there at these distilleries, going around and trying stuff. And I was getting a souvenir, and this lady, some couple from Ohio came up to me, and they're like, "Hey, can you? We'll give you money for this. Can you buy this for us?" Because they were only allowing people to buy 1 bottle per person. And so I was like, "Yeah, sure." I bought it for them. But it's just it's a really it's a fun area. So I'll send you the link afterwards.
There you go. I love it. Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, this has been one of my most fun podcasts. I really appreciate this. And the website, str.com, is that the website?
STR Insights. Yeah. INSIGHTS. Yep. STR Insights. Yep. That's my company website. People are welcome to follow me too at Kenny_Bedwell. That's usually a good place. I put a lot of good content on social media, YouTube as well. If you're interested in the short-term rental space, learning more about it, I try to give a very data-oriented approach. You look at the numbers, and then you can make your own decisions. I do not do the emotional side. Oh, this is pretty, go buy it. Not me at all. So
it's got to make sense. Or if the old saying, it's got to make sense, or it doesn't make sense.
Exactly. Yeah.
So guys, if you want to write this down, or if you're driving, don't write. We'll have it in the show notes. But if you're not driving, just remember Kenny Bedwell, right? STRinsights.com. And if I remember correctly, there's a tool on there that they can use for free, analysis tool.
Yep. Yeah. If you just go to our website and you click Get Started Today, it actually takes you strate there. It's pretty cool. So we got videos on how to use it. It's very simple. Start there. Honestly, we have videos on the site. I usually tell people watch the videos first to see how to use things and if this even makes sense for you. Because a lot of Short-term rentals is an active form of investing, and there's two parts to it. There is the actual real estate investment part, but then you have to run a short-term rental, which means you have to be hospitable. And if you don't like people, probably not the right fit. So start with some videos. Well, but they're all, you can just go to the site and check it out.
But that brings me to a good point too. For if you're a real estate agent listening to this, I hope you're taking notes, and I hope you're going to take action on this, because you got clients out there. Even if you haven't worked with investors, people you've helped buy and sell homes, you'd be shocked at how many of them actually invest and how many of them want to invest. And if they can have a pathway to make these kind of numbers, good Lord, you'd have a friend for life, and they're going to tell everybody else about you. So if you're an agent, this is a wake-up call for you. Yeah, the market's slow right now, but if you're an investor, we just keep cruising right along. So take it to heart, learn it, live it, and love it, and you're going to make a lot of money from it too. So Kenny, thanks again for doing this. Thank you, listeners, for listening. You're very welcome, and we appreciate you. We appreciate your reviews. Please leave reviews. This is what makes the podcast world go around. Kenny and I, we don't get paid for doing this. It's networking for us, and we learn a lot, obviously, but really, it's a free community service. So again, we love your reviews. We appreciate you. God bless you and all your loved ones, and we will see you on the next Massive Passive Cashflow Podcast.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Massive Passive Cashflow. Be sure to go to realestatewithgarywilson.com to join our community and start building wealth today.